Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Big Ten Talk with Emily. I am super glad you guys are here for this daytime edition of the show, which I'm actually really vibing with. I actually really like this. But I am here with Connor Muldowney, who writes for Spartan Avenue, and as you can tell, is a Michigan State fan. And you are actually my first Michigan State fan on here, so I'm like super excited to have a first of a team I have yet to like really get the chance to talk about on this show. But first, how are you doing today, Connor?
Sports wise, not great, but personally, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm glad that you are doing well overall. And that's actually a really good segue into kind of kicking things off. I would love to talk about Michigan State, even if it's just for a few minutes, even through the bad, but I would love to hear your thoughts. So obviously it has not probably been the type of season that you guys were hoping for, especially this is what, year 2 with Jonathan Smith. I would love to kind of hear your thoughts just on what has been going wrong and kind of like where you're hoping the Spartans go from here.
What's been going wrong? Honestly, I think it'd be easier to tell you what's going
What's going
right
right?
because there's so much going wrong with the team. The team just looks a little disjointed. They look a little, I don't know. It just feels like the vibe is off. And I don't know if it's a locker room thing. I don't know if they just kind of have given up on Jonathan Smith, which wouldn't be all that surprising I don't know if you've ever heard, I'm sure you've heard Jonathan Smith talk. He's
Yeah,
not exactly the most inspiring coach.
right.
And I think that's the biggest problem in East Lansing right now is fans are having a hard time rallying around him, kind of supporting him because he's not doing a good job of rallying the team around himself. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think you're seeing a small school personality kind of join the Big Ten at a bigger school than where he was, and it's just he's a good coach. It's just not a good fit right now, and we're seeing that on the field.
Were you pretty hopeful? Like, were you excited about the hire originally?
That's tough. I was. It took me a little bit of convincing to kind of buy into him.
Yeah.
I knew he was a good coach at Oregon State. I knew the track record he built. I mean, Oregon State was bottom dweller, one of the worst teams in the Pac-12, and he turned that around in I
Yeah.
think it was 5 years. I think it took for him to really kind of turn the corner.
Right.
So I knew going in that it wasn't going to be a quick fix. I knew he's a coach that likes a longer rebuild. So I talked myself into being excited. Probably shouldn't have. I probably should have just trusted my gut when the hire was made because the fit didn't make a ton of sense to me. A lot of people were like, he's kind of like Mark D'Antonio, where he's just kind of he doesn't get too emotional about things, doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. But I mean, Mark D'Antonio still showed emotion every now and then. I don't think I've ever seen Jonathan Smith yell at a ref, crack a smile. Like he's just like 100 of the same faces for every type of emotion there is. So
Right.
yeah, I was kind of excited at first, but that's quickly worn off.
Yeah. And so are you hoping a coaching change is coming in the off season, or are you not optimistic with that direction?
Yeah, I'd like to hope that my school's athletic department has a little bit of pride and doesn't accept, losing 6 straight games and then the last loss is just almost almost unfathomable. The way they actually lost the game was just and then to hear Jonathan Smith in the post game press conference like act like it wasn't even that big of a deal. It's yeah,
Yeah.
I would hope for a change for sure. And I think unless he were to somehow win out and beat Iowa, beat Penn State, beat Maryland, which I don't see happening in a million years, I
Right.
just I think it's time. It has to be time. And I hate giving up on a coach before 2 full years is up because I feel like that's a real big cop out. But when your coach shows zero progress, like zero improvement in any facet of football, like you just have to move on.
Yeah. And if Michigan State was to move on, you guys would be joining a long list of schools looking for a new head coach. Does that become concerning to you in regard of how your program stacks up against other schools that are also looking for a head coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going up against LSU is like that's something nobody wants to be doing when you're looking for a coach. Like LSU is going to get
Right.
whoever they want. Not
Right.
saying that State would be going after the same coach as LSU or anything, but
Yeah.
like LSU, Florida, Auburn, like those are big money schools that are going to likely outbid Michigan State unless I mean Michigan State does have multiple billionaire donors who could really, push for a big check, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely concerning to go up against Florida and LSU and Auburn and all these big time schools, and it definitely kind of narrows the pool of coaches a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely find it to be such a fascinating year with the coaching carousel because if you even go into the preseason, like the week before college football started, it would be unimaginable to see all of these programs looking for a head coach by the end of the season. So I
Crazy.
don't even know if there's that many great candidates for all of these programs, especially when you consider Penn State, potentially Michigan State, to
Mhm.
kind of fill these head coach vacancies. So I think it'll be a really entertaining component of the postseason.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the crazier coaching carousel years just because that like you said like Penn State too. I mean, you have all
Right.
these big schools and just not enough big names to go around, which is definitely concerning. And like looking back, I don't know if Penn State's going to be like, did we make the right move by, cutting a coach loose who could potentially I mean, I was so anti James Franklin for the longest time. Even when he got fired and State fans were like, I would love him at Michigan State, I was hesitant. But
Yeah.
thinking about it, like, I mean, I would kill to have a coach who could get us to big games. I don't care. I mean, I do care that he's losing them, but I want to be in big games again. And it's been almost, I don't know. I won't even count 2021 just because that was such a flash in the pan. It's been like since 2017 since State was truly relevant in football, and that's just way too long.
Yeah. It seems much longer too. It's
Yeah,
crazy
it
how
does.
football years go.
Yeah, it does.
um, but yes, so I would be really interested to see if Michigan State moves forward and fires Jonathan Smith because I don't think I've met one single Michigan State fan, especially in recent weeks, who are pro keeping him. And typically I'm with you. I don't really like how quickly coaches get fired, but you can only kind of just like the trajectory of your program, is it on the healthiest path
Yeah.
with him as your head coach? So I feel for you. I
I,
do.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's
I
it's
do.
one thing, like you said, like if a team is in year two and the coach is like showing some signs of improvement, like like
Right.
let's say our offensive line got better, which it hasn't, shocker,
Right.
or anything, like anything improved, then I'd be like, all right, let's give him a chance. But I mean, the only improvement from last year to this year is probably the recruiting class, and that's falling apart currently. So um, there really isn't anything to kind of have hope for if they do retain him.
Yeah. Do you have like a preferred head coach or at least like a short list of people you hope that your program would go after this off season if they were to move forward and fire Jonathan Smith?
Yeah, I think like I said, I was talking about Franklin.
Yeah.
I don't think that's super realistic because it just seems like he's ready to find his next job like ASAP, and it doesn't look like Michigan State's in any rush to make a
Right.
move. James Franklin would definitely be a good candidate for me. I like Alex Golesh from USF. I like Brent Key from Georgia Tech. I like. I think his last name is Eck from New Mexico, the Lobos.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he's. I think he's going to end up at Wisconsin. I think he's going to end up replacing Luke Fickle just because he's a Wisconsin guy. But like someone like that who has ties to the Midwest, don't give me Brian Kelly. I don't want Brian Kelly. No matter how many wins Brian Kelly has on his resume, it just the vibe is just off with him. I don't want him in East Lansing, and that'll
I
just
don't
set
blame
our
you.
program back. Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
not a good guy. But I would say those guys probably. I know there's more that I'm missing, but just
Yeah.
give me someone with energy. Like give me someone who gets mad or sad or happy. Just give me someone that shows emotion.
I don't blame you. It can be pretty empowering from a head coach standpoint to show emotion for a team, a fan base, everybody in between. So I do recognize and understand that that's kind of an important element that your program is currently missing. And I'm also
Mhm.
impressed that you're that rare college football fan who doesn't list John Gruden or Urban Meyer when talking about who you want as head coach next. Those two names
I mean,
always
I would love Urban Meyer, but
those two
but
names
it's not
always
happening.
come up. No,
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
yeah, it's not
But
happening.
yeah, so it'll be really interesting and entertaining from an outside perspective as to which head coaches land at all of these programs, because like you mentioned, I forgot about this, but Wisconsin's on that path as well. So they could also be joining that list of Big 10 or college football teams in general looking for a new head coach. So it's quite the year. It's to be in demand for, if you're a head coach, to sweep in and get one of these availabilities.
And I wouldn't be shocked if I don't know what the contract situation is at Ole Miss, but like Lane Kiffin is likely going to be the top candidate at either Florida or LSU. So Ole
Right.
Miss might be joining the mix, and that's just that's just more money that State would have to compete with.
This is
So,
true. Yes. So when you look at the state of the Big Ten right now, and I'll kind of backtrack a little bit because I love hearing people's opinions and thoughts on this, but what were your original thoughts on four new schools joining the conference? So with Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC.
it was the only worry that I had was about the fit, just because like State
Okay.
added Rutgers and Maryland was their well, they added Nebraska too, but Rutgers and Maryland were their kind of like East Coast additions that were like, are they really Big Ten schools, or are we just like kind of molding them to be Big Ten schools?
Right.
Um, but it feels like Oregon's competing for championships in the Big Ten already, and like that's kind of what you wanted. You wanted teams to come in and compete and not just be bottom dwelling like Rutgers has for ever. Not to
Right.
pick on Rutgers or anything, but like everybody knows what Rutgers is. Rutgers has just been kind of the same program forever. But I knew Oregon was going to be good. Was a little bit worried about like the UCLA fit, the USC. But it feels like all four teams kind of bring something to the Big Ten that we didn't have before, and it's been more of an exciting addition than the previous editions, which that's kind of what I care about. Like I just want a good product.
Yeah.
But like I mean, each team has. I'm a little mad at UCLA still for what they did to us about 3 weeks ago in East Lansing, but
Right.
um, that might help us get a new coach. So all four teams have really done good things. So at first I was a little hesitant because, like I said, the fit is just it's hard to call Oregon, Washington, UCLA, USC Big Ten schools, just
Yeah.
because like I don't know, it's just like they're a little flashier than we're used to, which is probably what we needed. We were a little boring, but they've assimilated really well, and I've been impressed with all of them in both football and basketball.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, from a school coming in, I thought it was a really exciting move. I wanted Oregon to end up in the Big Ten, and I thought that would be the best fit for them, especially thinking about the trajectory of the program and the hopeful success.
Yeah.
And so I was super excited. I mean, we get matchups that we otherwise wouldn't get, or we would get in special circumstances. So the fact that like Oregon is traveling to Iowa this weekend,
Crazy. It's
like
crazy.
Iowa is just like to even like think about that.
Yeah.
Just like a few years ago would have been unimaginable. And we probably, if you told me that Oregon was playing Iowa a few years ago, I don't know how I would have taken that information, because what that would mean for us to get to the
You would
Big
have asked what horrible bowl game you made,
Right.
probably.
What happened? What
Yeah.
happened in the season for us to
Yeah.
play Iowa? But I think it's really interesting, and all of these like sub rivalries or mini rivalries beginning and forming, and just like new history being made, I think is like a really cool component. But one of the big conversation topics that continuously comes up is the continued realignment and like what other schools could join the Big Ten. And is that something that you're at all worried about, or do you welcome like new schools and like the addition of new programs for the sake of like boosting up the conference?
That's a good question. I would say I'm kind of against the super conference idea. Like I
Yeah,
don't really want it to just be like Big Ten, SEC, and that's everybody else is basically a group of five.
right.
Um, I've always kind of wanted Notre Dame to be part of the Big Ten. That would be kind of a cool addition. But like other than, like one or two schools that we could pick off before super conferences, I feel like inevitably happen.
Yeah.
I I guess in that scenario I'd be okay with it. But like I really don't want there to just be two massive 30 team conferences. I feel like that would ruin the sport. It would kind of like for state schools like Michigan State, who's kind of like normally not lately, but like normally upper tier of the Big Ten, like kind
Yeah.
of competing, but not, always competing. That would just kind of ruin any chance that schools like that have of competing and for conference titles, for national titles. Like you might not see an Indiana pop up again in that scenario where they just come out of nowhere and they're, first place in the Big Ten, potential national championship. Like you won't see lower tier teams like that sneak up anymore. And
Yeah.
that's what I don't like. I like the parity of college sports. I don't want it to be ruined by money, which it looks like it kind of already is. So
Right.
if I had to choose, no, I don't want any more schools. But like if it's going to happen, give me Notre Dame, I guess.
And I think Notre Dame it would make sense.
Yeah.
It's common sense to me that Notre Dame would join the Big Ten if they were to join a
Hmm.
conference. But are there any other teams that you would want before like the SEC took them? So from the ACC or the Big 12?
Clemson would be a cool one. I feel like just to get like a
Yeah.
more of an like a southern East Coast presence.
Right.
I don't know if Florida State makes any sense, but I feel like if you add Clemson, you should add Florida State just to kind of have like a bit of a ACC rivalry mixed in.
Yeah.
Um, those are really the only two that I could think of. Maybe I don't really want Miami. I don't know. Miami feels like an SEC school all the way
It
anyway.
does. It does feel like an SEC school. And I know like schools like UNC and Virginia have come up, especially for basketball purposes, to make the move to the Big Ten.
UNC would be cool. I feel like
Yeah.
UNC would be a fun one. Virginia, I don't know. They don't move the needle enough for me. Obviously, they're having a great year on
Yeah,
football
it's
wise,
been
but
entertaining.
the basketball program, I don't know if it'll ever be the same without Tony Bennett. So I don't know if that would just be like a yearly like free win for most teams. But football wise, I feel like it'd be interesting for sure. I think North Carolina would be a really cool addition. That would definitely monetarily, I'm sure the Big Ten would love to have
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have just a few more weeks of the regular season left, which is wild. But I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you have a Big Ten conference championship prediction? Like which two teams are going to make it to the championship game?
To be like completely honest, I haven't even looked at the standings since the first month. But I obviously know like who's winning and who's losing. I
Yeah.
just don't know
No, that's okay. Yeah.
anything. I've said from the beginning pretty much that I think Ohio State is the national title favorite. I think they're going to probably win the Big Ten. Um, Oregon, Oregon was my number two until that Indiana game, which like
Right.
shocked me. I'm still kind of in shock that they won that game.
Yeah.
But my number two would probably be between Oregon and Indiana. I just feel like one of those two teams is going to make the Big Ten title game, and I think both of them are good enough to beat Ohio State. I just think Ohio State has just been kind of like a machine so far, and
Yeah.
they're doing their normal thing where they're just beating up on lesser opponents. But then, I mean, we could get to the Michigan Ohio State game, and
So
it could be the same as it's been for the past 4 years, and
right.
you can just crumble at the end. But I think those three teams, Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana, are really kind of battling it out for the title game.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting since the college football playoff rankings come out tonight.
Mhm.
I've heard and read a bunch about how Ohio State will not be number one, just given their resume, and how it might be Indiana or A&M. So I think that will be interesting because, I mean, Indiana beat Oregon, and Ohio State didn't have to play Oregon or Indiana this regular season. So from a standpoint, it's interesting.
Ohio State did technically beat the number one team in the country to start the year. But like that's being held against them because Texas kind of fell off. But
Yes.
I mean,
And we get into that whole argument with college football, right? Because
yeah.
it's been the same one that Oregon's been dealing with Penn State. Like Penn
Hmm.
State beat Oregon, and that weekend it was a massive win. But then Penn State goes on to lose to UCLA, who at that point everyone thought was going winless, and it has just crumbled. And then Oregon lost to Indiana.
Penn State's not the same team. Like that, it's
Yeah.
just people have to realize that at the start of the season, Penn State was a legitimate top 10 team.
Right.
Like they were probably a national title contender, and then they lose one game and it turns into three, and the season's over. Like that's how quick it can happen. Like the whole season just flipped in an instant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't penalize the teams that played Penn State when they were Penn State. But unfortunately, that's going to happen, and maybe not penalized, but that won't be looked at as a good win for anybody who beats Penn State from here on out. But yeah, like I don't know the resumes of everybody around college football, but I know that if you put Oregon on a field with pretty much any one of the top teams, they're going to give them a game. They're going to have a legitimate chance to win. Same goes for Indiana. Those might be, I'm not going to say three best teams in the country, but like those are three legitimate top 5 caliber teams that could really win the national championship.
Yeah. It'll be interesting for sure. I definitely think at this point I have Ohio State and Indiana in the conference championship, but I don't know. I'm really nervous about traveling to Iowa this weekend, so we will just wait and see.
I was a tricky team. Is that a night game?
And no, it's at 12:30.
Okay, you guys benefit from it not being, because Kinnick Stadium at night is kind of like, it's just kind of like spooky. I don't know. There's just something about it where stuff happens. It's almost like Purdue at night. You just don't want to play there.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when we weren't in the conference, it's like those are the Iowa game, especially Iowa night games, was something I always kept my eye on, because I was like, oh, whatever team's going there that weekend, that could be a loss, even if we expect it, because it's just a funky game, I feel like, for so many teams, especially ranked teams. So that one's a little, these next few weeks should be interesting for Oregon. But again, there's excitement in traveling to Iowa for the first time, but also some nerves just given how they can, give teams and give ranked teams quite the challenge.
I mean, Iowa's like a borderline playoff team, right? Like they
are
really sneak into the playoff, which shocks me. But that's what happens when you give Iowa a decent offense. They're good.
I know, which is even more nerve-wracking. Yes.
Don't worry, we have to play them too. We'll probably lose by 40. So
I was about to ask you. I was like, wait, it's on your schedule, huh?
Yeah, it's unfortunately, and we have a bye this week, and then we play, I think it's Penn State, then Iowa, then Maryland.
Okay.
At Iowa. So that'll be super fun to watch.
Ooh, yeah, that will be super fun to watch. So that is a good segue into, let's talk about this past weekend's games. So now that was like 3 days ago, but I imagine you watched Michigan State and Minnesota. Were you able to catch any of the other Big Ten games this weekend? Because there weren't that many. We had like 6 teams on a bye.
I watched Michigan, unfortunately, because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I like to see my rival do really well. I watched a little bit of the Indiana game, like through commercial breaks. I only watched that game because I was like, wow, this is way closer than it should be, and then like I blinked and it was like a 30-point game. So Indiana is kind of a tank, and then the Ohio State Penn State game was really close to halftime, which I also kind of checked into a little bit.
Yeah, it was.
And then like the second half was just all Ohio State. So
yeah,
I felt like every game this past weekend kind of went how we would have guessed. Like if we all predicted what the final score would be to everything, there wasn't. The only one was the Michigan game that I was shocked at how close it was.
Yeah.
I just feel like Michigan is a 7-win team that's in like a 9-win team's like costume or something. It's like they're cosplaying as a good team, but they're just a very above average team. And that's not even me saying it as a Michigan State fan. It's
right.
Most Michigan fans would agree that they're just like kind of hanging around this like playoff potential bubble, but it's going to take one game and it's just going to pop, and they're just going to go back to regress to where they probably belong.
Wait, so does that mean you think this is Ohio State's year to win the game?
I mean, it really should be, but I also thought last year was, and I thought the
Yeah.
year before was. So I'm done thinking that Ohio State is going to win that game until they actually win it again.
Yeah.
They should beat Michigan comfortably this year, but I'm pretty sure the game is in Ann Arbor, and
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
weird stuff happens in that game all the
Right.
time. Ohio State, for some reason, that's like their boogeyman. Like they can't figure out. Ryan Day just cannot figure Michigan out for whatever reason, and I don't know. I could see Michigan winning that game again. Unfortunately, with how good Ohio State's been, I hate predicting that, but God, until Ohio State wins, I can't predict that this is the year they finally end it. I can't. I don't
It would
know.
be, I mean, I'm with you. It would be really difficult to imagine that Ohio State doesn't win the season, but I
Mhm.
definitely said that last season. And I was in shock that when I looked at that score on my phone, the fact that Michigan was about to beat Ohio State,
Mhm.
like absolutely wild. But I mean, from an outside perspective, I'm like, doesn't matter. You went on to win the national championship. Like, come on. But I know rivalries. I understand
Yeah.
one of the biggest rivalries, if not the biggest rivalry in college football. So I know there were still fans who were like, great, if you don't win this year, then
Yeah.
Ryan Day should be fired.
It's one of those rare rivalries where like you can beat them in the regular season, and then like the team you beat goes on to win the national title, and you still somehow have bragging rights. So like you can still talk
Yeah.
crap to them. It's very
Yeah,
weird.
it is. But
But
it's
like,
also wildly
how do you
entertaining.
argue against it though?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And watching them fight on social media
it's
is
crazy.
amazing.
It's
Like
crazy.
that's how you know, like that's the marker of a really good college football
Yeah.
rivalry is like your ability to do that.
You have to kind of give it up to Michigan fans. Like they're constantly battling everyone. Like
Yeah.
they hate Ohio State fans, they hate Michigan fans or Michigan State fans. They hate like they're always going to battle against some fan base constantly. So
Yeah.
they have to have just endless energy to just fight on social
They're
media.
dedicated. They're like
They are
really
dedicated.
committed
Yeah.
to doing that. So
Different breed
and
of people for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. So yes, I am with you. How these games were going to go ended up happening, but there were moments of I feel like almost every game this past weekend where I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe Penn State could win. Maybe Maryland could pull this off. Maybe Purdue will win, especially with USC and Nebraska." Like
Oh yeah.
I knew that USC would probably come back like had a hard time imagining USC would lose to Nebraska. But
Mhm.
for the majority of that game, it was going in favor of Nebraska. And so that was a really interesting one. And kind of Nebraska's collapse basically to not pull off that win is rather concerning. But I know they have a hurt quarterback.
Yeah, Dylan
Yeah,
Raiola, I think, is out for the year
I
now.
think
I think
so. Yeah.
he broke his fibula or something. He broke something. But that's like Nebraska is gonna be in most games just because they have a good defense.
Yeah.
And their offense, Raiola gets a ton of credit for being this great former five-star quarterback. I mean, Michigan State played them. They kind of shut them down, which shocked me a little bit, but they won because they just smothered us defensively. And I
Mm.
knew that USC was going to have a little bit of a tricky time playing that defense. And we saw their quarterback I mean, he had probably his worst game of the year, and they still found a way to win. So you feel a little bit bad for Nebraska that they just keep finding ways to like crumble. This is like the theme since Scott Frost got hired. So even before Scott Frost, they
Right.
just find ways to lose in heartbreaking fashion. And I mean, that was just another one. So
Yeah, that was, I mean, so aside from Washington, I do always love watching USC lose. It's like my second tier team who I love watching lose. So I was a little bit bummed about that one, but again, it went as expected. Like I expected USC to win that game, so not super bummed.
yeah.
But yeah, it was Nebraska losing in heartbreak fashion. That's absolutely true. And then admittedly, I did not watch your game. I'm sorry, I did not watch the Michigan State
It's fine.
Minnesota
I
game.
don't blame you.
But can you? No, no, no. It's not even that I wouldn't. Like I absolutely would have loved to. But can you kind of walk through? So I saw that it went into overtime. Like, what are your general thoughts about the game? You don't have to necessarily stick with like Michigan State, just like a general overall Minnesota side too of like what that game, kind of like that game breakdown.
I think Michigan State if I had to look at the numbers, I would just guess that we probably out rushed them, out passed them, maybe not out rushed them, out total yardaged them by a pretty considerable amount, I would assume, without even looking.
Okay.
I just felt like that was one of those games where it was kind of like it was served up on a platter. Like, this is a winnable game for you. You have to do the bare minimum to win. Just don't shoot yourself in the leg, and don't put the game in the ref's hands at the end of the game, and you'll win. And the exact thing that we shouldn't have done, we did. We scored the go-ahead touchdown with, I think it was just under 2 minutes left. And all we had to do was just not let them go all the way down the field and score to tie it up. We kicked the kickoff out of bounds, so that gave them the ball at the 35. We got, I think it was some sort of penalty, some 15-yard penalty that gave.
Okay.
So basically, they were at the 50 basically before even running a play.
Yeah.
And then they just marched down the field and scored. And then I don't know if you even heard about the call in overtime that was super controversial, but they called a pass interference. It was 3rd and 3. They called a pass interference on Minnesota, which, like, the replay, he was grabbing his jersey from behind. So it was like a clear call.
Yeah.
And then they marked the ball 15 yards up. So we had a first and goal inside the 10. And then they reversed the call. Like, the call got reversed without, like, the ball got moved up to reflect the penalty. And then they got on the mic and were like, there's no penalty on the play. Like 90 seconds later. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then it was 4th down. Then we had to kick a field goal. They go down and score a touchdown. So, like, the whole thing shouldn't have even gotten to that point, but it was just like, Big Ten fans deserve a little better than the refs. I watch multiple games, and every game has seemingly poor officiating, and that's a theme over the years that goes into basketball too. I won't get started on that. Big Ten fans deserve better, and I feel like all you have to do is just watch the Michigan State Minnesota game to realize that.
Yeah, I know the officiating is really interesting, and even more so like with what the ACC is doing, where you can like hear the discussions with each penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that fascinating. I remember the first game. I can't remember what first game I saw this season that did that, but I was like, wait, I can like hear, like that's actually really incredible. And why all conferences aren't doing that? Well, I probably know why, but why all conferences are not doing that should probably be examined a little bit more, because I think that would be incredibly insightful and provide context that maybe would help some fans.
I would assume that if that was available for the Michigan State Minnesota game, someone would have gotten fired from that discussion that was heard. But I thought the same thing. I think the ACC is like way ahead of its time in doing that. I think that it kind of holds everyone accountable. It's like the NCAA's version of like a body cam. Like, obviously that's like not, but like it holds everybody accountable. You can't get away with doing things like you saw in the Michigan State game. Like, you can't just reverse a call that was already called. Like, you got to talk it through. But I agree, that needs to be everywhere. I think that's probably the next step, I would assume, for the Big Ten, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it would be really insightful and kind of just fun to see from like that perspective. And then I think there was one more game that we didn't touch on. Oh, Rutgers and Illinois. So Illinois won, and they won by a lot. 35-13 was that final score.
Kind of what I expected out of that one.
Surprising. I know Illinois was actually a team that kept coming up in the offseason about it being kind of like consistent with the year that Indiana's having this year. Like, going to be Indiana and Illinois both progressing and making improvements and having better seasons than they did last season. But Illinois obviously suffered a few losses. I think a couple losses maybe that kind of like led them off of that path. But Indiana has been soaring and in dominating fashion. Are there any teams in this conference that have surprised you this year, either in a good way or a bad way, in terms of their overall performance?
I think Wisconsin's been surprisingly bad. I thought that they were going to kind of maybe take another step and save Fickle's job. I just think that they're with Michigan State as like potentially the worst team in the conference.
They had an incredibly difficult schedule too.
Yeah, they have. But like, they've also kind of looked dead against the schedule. It's kind of like what Michigan State looked like last year. I think they played Oregon, Ohio State, and I don't know if Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan was back to back to back, but it was like within a 4-week span.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
State just they weren't competitive in any of those games. And that's kind of how Wisconsin looks this year. So they've been surprisingly bad. I think Washington's kind of been a surprisingly good team.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that people thought that they were going to be pretty good to start the year, but I didn't expect them to be, bowl eligible by November. They have one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. They're just kind of they're kind of doing like what Jed Fish always does. He improves a program like pretty quickly year 2, and then he usually finds another job. But like he's doing a good job there.
And now that Florida job's available too.
Yeah, he's. I'd be shocked if he wasn't on the move this offseason.
Yeah.
Like just based off of what he usually does, I'd be shocked. I'm sure you're happy about that. I'd be shocked if he was not looking at one of these big jobs, like licking his lips, like rubbing his hands together, like excited.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But, yeah. I think it was like maybe a year ago. I had posted something projecting that he would end up in Florida after this season. So the fact that that Florida job opened up, I was like, oh, I wonder if I can pull that tweet in a few weeks when it's announced that Jed.
That would be a major big brain tweet to
right?
kind of about. Yeah, that'd be huge.
Right?
But I don't know if he's high profile enough for Florida.
I don't know either. That's kind of what gets me too. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I feel like Florida might be able to get someone, more high profiled, and I think that would be their preference. But I know his name has been tied to jobs like UCLA as well.
He would win games. Like he's going to win wherever he goes. He's kind of proven that he'll turn a program around really quick and then he's gone. Right. Like so. I don't know. Washington feels like a bigger job than what he's had, so maybe he sticks around.
It does, yeah.
And it's been proven that you can make a national title game at Washington fairly early on in a coaching career. So
right.
I think it'd be stupid if he tried to take one of these big jobs and then he was in over his head because he's only had the same kind of caliber of job. But I don't know. You might be right. You might be right. It's going to be hard for him to turn down some of the money that he'll probably see.
Yeah, but I agree. I think Washington is having an improved year. So that would be also on my list of teams that have surprised me in terms of how I thought they were going to perform. And then, I mean, the biggest one is obviously Penn State in terms of like, yikes, that went a totally different direction than I thought it would because so many people had them pinned as the national champion this year. Especially with that veteran roster, but kind of like what you said, it just can happen so quickly. Like the span of 3 to 4 weeks, you went from potentially being the national champion to firing your coach and your quarterback being out for the season. So life comes at you fast.
Yeah. Honestly, like you said, they were all excited. They had their quarterback. They had, the coach was fired up about national title, and then you let one loss turn to 2 and then you're in serious danger territory. Like, luckily nowadays college football, there's the playoff fields expanded. So 2 losses isn't the end of your season.
Right.
But like some teams still act like it's over. Like once they hit the 2 losses, they're like, all right, then what are we even doing? So it kind of felt like the Penn State, trajectory was like based off the players being like, this is heartbreaking. Now our season's over. And they still had so much to play for, and it just kind of crumbled.
They did, yeah. And I'm sure losing to UCLA was like such a shocker because just at the state of where UCLA was, that was probably one of the most unexpected things for Penn State to travel to Pasadena and actually lose that game. So that probably didn't help the overall morale or locker room vibe, but
I'm blaming Penn State for UCLA just coming to Michigan State a week later.
I would,
destroying us. I'm going to blame Penn State for that one.
That's right. That was a week later. And I mean, you totally should, because I also wasn't expecting that. I thought Michigan State would get the win over UCLA. Like, okay, maybe Penn State was a fluke. Like, all right, whatever. And then I was quite surprised to see that UCLA beat the Spartans as well.
Yeah, I got the best seats I've ever had in my life for that game. I just decided to go all in and get. I think it was technically third row, but I was like on the railing first row at Spartan Stadium, and I was gone by halftime. It was so bad. But I beat UCLA's mascot in rock paper scissors. So that's all.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. At least you walked away with a win.
Yeah, I got to win.
Absolutely. Now, over the next few weeks and the remaining of Michigan State's schedule, is there a game that I feel like excited for is probably the wrong terminology here, but out of the remaining games, which game are you looking forward to the most? And it can be for any reason. If you're like, this is finally what gets him fired, we have a chance of actually winning this, like whatever your reason might be.
I would say Maryland just because it's going to be the end of the season, but like realistically, probably the Penn State game.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
just feel like if you win that one, you kind of might have momentum going into Iowa, and then Maryland's a winnable game to end the year. I probably Penn State, like that kind of shows you like we know we're bad, but how bad are we? Are we bad enough to where we're losing to a team without a coach who kind of gave up on the season bad, or are we just a
Right.
step above that? So
Right.
a loss to Penn State would likely be the end of Smith, I would assume. But I mean, we lost to a team without a coach already this year by 25 on our own home field. So nothing would surprise me. But I would say the Penn State game, just because like that's a game I came into the year thinking we had no shot at, and now it's like we might potentially, but we also have 0 combined Big Ten wins between us. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, I can see how the Penn State game would be interesting for you guys and from your perspective. And then, yeah, Maryland, the end of the season. I get that. I've had seasons like that too. So absolutely. Absolutely. But thank you so much for joining me today, Connor, on Taco Tuesday. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for talking about Michigan State, Big Ten. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me and kind of thinking of me first. Hopefully I didn't ruin Michigan State fans for you.
No, my gosh.
Yeah. You can find me at SpartanAvenue.com. I also have SpartanShadows.com is just another project I have going. But you can also find me on Twitter at Connor Muldowney, the same way my name is spelled on the screen. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't hate me for my poor takes because I have a ton of them.
No, that's the joy of being a college football fan, right? Tons of poor takes. But yes, thank you so much, Connor. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for tuning in today. I appreciate you guys. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel on YouTube to keep up with more Big Ten talk, as well as all of the other content that our creators are putting up for you.